Our reading today, I've Known Rivers, was written by the African-American poet Langston Hughes. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. There ends the reading. Body and soul. When something is done or believed body and soul, it is done or believed completely, like taking something to heart. This term indicates great faith and commitment. The body, as the physical vessel, influences our experiences and capabilities, while the soul, often considered the seat of one's emotions and consciousness, guides our moral and spiritual decisions. The body and soul play important roles in making choices for one's future existence. Our material bodies are evident because they are the physical aspect of ourselves that carries us through life and allows us to experience the world through our five senses. But our souls are less distinguishable. We all have bodies, and many people believe we have a soul, which is the spiritual essence that lives after our bodies are gone. Sometimes the word spirit is used interchangeably with the word soul. And while spirit and soul may seem to be the same, they're very different. Spirit is that animating essence within humans and all living beings. It's transcendent and mysterious, beckoning us to look beyond the physical realm. Soul, on the other hand, in its most basic sense, means life. It can refer to both the material and immaterial aspects of humanity. The soul can be applied to living or non-living entities, as in animism, which is a metaphysical belief focusing beyond logical foundations on the concept of the immaterial soul. However, the concept of the soul is generally applied to humans, and Christians generally believe in the existence of the eternal, infinite nature of the soul. Moreover, it is the journey toward individual soulhood that distinguishes the human kingdom from the animal kingdom, which is why Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. referred to the fight for civil rights in this country as trying to save the soul of America. The mind, body, and soul connection has been around for centuries. However, within the 20th century, research has proven that the human body has three distinct networks connected to each other: the head, the heart, and the gut. Now, when we make decisions with the head, we're using logic, rationality, and historical patterns as our framework. When we make decisions with our hearts, we're using emotions, feelings, empathy, and desire as our framework. And when we make decisions from the gut, we're using an internal, unexplainable knowing as the framework. It's fairly easy to discern when one is using their head, but it's much more difficult to tell the difference between when one is using heart versus the gut. When we make decisions based on our feelings, we're more than likely operating out of our heart. And making decisions from our gut is a calm and certain sense that we get about whether we are or are not supposed to do something. That is sometimes called intuition, God, and soul. My great-grandmother called it listening to your first mind, which harkens back to that gut network that was discovered through research. The immaterial, or that feeling of, I just know. Now, apart from the research on the three networks, I've also read that we actually have neurons in our stomach, which means we have a way of understanding the world that's not just in our head, but is actually in our gut. So when we connect to our body compass, we're tapping into a different level of wisdom, a different level of understanding and connection. What do I know, and how do I know it? In many religious and philosophical traditions, the soul is the spiritual essence of a person, which includes one's identity, personality, and memories. The Baha'i faith affirms that the soul is a heavenly gem whose reality most learned individuals fail to grasp, and whose mystery no mind can ever hope to unravel. Moreover, the belief is that the soul not only continues to live after the physical death of the human body, but it is immortal. Some Jewish scholars assert that there is no separation of body and soul in the Bible, that both body and soul effectively perish together. However, others point to a phrase that appears 10 times in the Torah, describing the deaths of 6 key figures as evidence of belief that the soul survives after the body dies. The Torah states a variation of, he died, his soul was gathered to his kin, and he was buried, pointing always to the deaths of Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, Aaron, and Moses. So that leaves a question as to the significance of this middle phrase between death and burial. Religion always focuses on our elusive, invisible souls, but Walt Whitman informed that if anything is sacred, it's the human body. Now, I'm grateful that when we take a moment to check in, to feel our bodies, that we have access to so much wisdom to recognize what we already sense is true. Just think about how wise our bodies are and how much information they hold about what we need. When we trust our bodies, particularly for those who are recovering from trauma, trust that our bodies know what they need to heal and that they know the truth of what's going on. We have access to much more than if we just think about something. Moreover, when it comes to my gut, it has never been off. I never discount the knowing. I'm guessing that some of you here know what I'm talking about. When you made a decision where you were absolutely certain, albeit in moments when you were terrified of something, but knew that you had to do it anyway. When you just knew you were supposed to pick up and move, start a relationship or end one, or take a job or leave one, go to an event, or walk down a random street. It had nothing to do with logic, thinking from your head, and nothing to do with feeling from your heart. It was just a knowing from within. So, we all have these moments of incredible grace. The more we listen to it, the louder we'll hear the calling of our gut, intuition, soul. It's the call that I heard guiding me into ministry. I tried to ignore it. Moreover, thinking logically, seemed impossible. Going part-time would take me forever to finish, but I couldn't afford to leave my job to go full-time. I was terrified, but the "I just know" meant that I couldn't afford not to go, to answer yes to the call. And when you're in alignment with the grace of soul, everything always works out as it should. I know that the soul is a messy thing for many Unitarian Universalists. Mostly it's because of burdens from whatever childhood definitions or images of soul that might be imagined, or those that have been imposed upon you, or picked up somehow by osmosis. Because the word itself carries so much baggage. Perhaps we're handicapped by a vacuum of contemporary reflection on the soul by scholars and theologians or scientists that we trust. Maybe it's the fear of a chilly reception that one might face from another Unitarian Universalist if the subject of soul is broached. The burden of the childhood definition carried when it comes to the word soul is in the speculation about whether there is a material entity that is the essence of life. Some believers in the soul aren't interested in proving that a soul has a material existence. They may, in fact, believe that the soul is a non-material entity that does exist, leaving the body upon death and going on to heaven or hell. Moreover, some believers in the soul aren't sure about the heaven and hell part and don't want to restrict the soul to humans or even to conscious beings. They see the soul as the life spark that comes from the God of our own understanding that animates all of life. And of course, some people don't believe in the soul at all, except as a superstition or a metaphor from literature and poetry. It is the poetry that we will often first turn to in any meditation towards a common understanding of the soul. And one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver, captures all the contradictions and ambiguities inherent in the word soul in her poem. Some questions you might ask. Is the soul solid like iron? Or is it tender and breakable, like the wings of a moth and the beak of an owl? Who has it and who doesn't? I keep looking around me. The face of the moose is as sad as the face of Jesus. The swan opens her white wings slowly. In the fall, the black bear carries leaves in the darkness. One question leads to another. Does it have a shape, like an iceberg, like the eye of a hummingbird? Does it have one lung, like the snake and the scallop? Why should I have it and not the anteater who loves her children? Why should I have it and not the camel? Come to think of it, what about the maple trees? What about the blue iris? What about the little stones sitting alone in the moonlight? What about roses and lemons and their shining leaves? What about the grass? Just something to think about. From my heart to yours, may it be so.